a landmark case because, first of all, this is the very, very first verdict that we have under the national security law. And on the other hand, this is a case that symbolizes the complete end of the rule of law in Hong Kong. Because before the case was trialed, Tong was already under custody for more than 300 days. It was almost a year for him in custody, which is actually arbitrary detention that is against his very fundamental rights. And he was denied his right to jury trial because originally there would be juries in his case, but then the court decided to remove the jury under the national security law. And then there were 3 judges who convicted him today. And these 3 judges were actually being handpicked by Beijing. So it's actually very clear that the common law essence that were once very vibrant in Hong Kong is no longer existing because of the national security law, that it overrides all of the existing legislation in Hong Kong and still uphold that kind of facade of the rule of law in Hong Kong under these common law procedures. But in fact, we are in a situation that is no different from the Chinese legal system. And on the other hand, the verdict of Tong's actually criminalizes the slogan of the protest, which is liberate Hong Kong, revolution of all times. This is actually implementing speech crime in Hong Kong because chanting the slogan or actually displaying the slogan should not be considered as a crime because that's freedom of expression and freedom of speech. So I am deeply worried about what will happen in the coming cases for other national security law cases, for example, Jimmy Lai's cases and the 47 pro-democrats that participated in the primaries 2 years ago.
And what did you make of what the judges said as the trial concluded?
I think the judges have said that they don't find it necessary to handle the dispute between the defendant's expert and the prosecution experts about the meaning of the slogan. But that is actually very problematic because to a certain extent, it might mean promoting Hong Kong independence. But for a lot of the protesters or for a lot of people that are in a part of the movement, they don't actually see that slogan related to advocating Hong Kong independence. And it might be up to each individual's interpretation of what they think it means. But when the judge says that because it might mean Hong Kong independence, then we are criminalizing the slogan. I think this is deeply problematic. And this is something that's very surreal to me. I never expected that to be happening in Hong Kong a few years ago. But now we're facing a day and age that Hong Kong has speech crime, and we have to be extremely careful about what we say so that we do not infringe the law.
And how did Tong's defence team argue his case?
In the trial, Tong didn't answer any questions in person, but he actually have his team of lawyers lined up experts that are involved in political and sociological studies, analyzing what does the slogan means online or offline in certain occasions, like with qualitative and quantitative studies, and with their expertise as very well-known scholars in Hong Kong about the political atmosphere and the political arena. And then they came up with the conclusion that, and they actually warned the court against cherry picking, that the slogan can mean various of things, and it's not only pointing to Hong Kong independence. It might mean we want to restore Hong Kong's status quo before the national security law was implemented, or even back when we were still under British colonial rule. These are all the possibilities of the slogan. But the court did exactly what the experts suggested against, which is cherry picking. They simply said, because it might mean Hong Kong independence in very specific context, so there is no need to deal with the prosecution's experts and what the defendant's experts said differently. So they simply ruled that it's illegal and it's actually promoting Hong Kong independence or promoting the separation of Hong Kong from China.
Glacier, this ruling wasn't unexpected. What do you expect his sentence to be?
The ruling is indeed unexpected because of all the things that I have said, like handpicked judges and all of these things. But I do think that he would receive a very heavy penalty because this would serve a signaling effect in the society that if anyone attempts to advocate for democracy in Hong Kong, then they will face the same treatment, which is like 10 years in prison at least. So I say they will give him a very heavy punishment in that case.
And just finally, Glacier, for you and your activism work, what does this ruling mean for you?
I think it means a lot to me personally because I'm currently a PhD candidate in law, and I kind of feel very upset about the choice of studying law right now because when the rule of law is no longer existing in Hong Kong, so what's the point of doing all of those studies? But on the other hand, as an activist, I would say this doesn't change anything. It just motivates me even more to actually do what I'm doing right now because the people in Hong Kong are facing more and more difficulties in speaking up. So it's up to a lot of activists like me and other colleagues that are abroad to actually tell what's exactly happening in Hong Kong and try to counteract Beijing's narrative so that the world would know what's happening and then make it a lesson to learn from and don't let these lessons repeat when it comes to dealing with China on the global arena.
Glacier Kwong, thanks so much for talking to us.
Thank you.